was a short week, but somehow those short weeks seem long, don't they? When we have a day off on Monday, it makes the rest of the week seem really long. So congratulations, you made it to Friday. We also this week, we were supposed to have started getting into equations and expressions, and that kind of got interrupted by the last minute STAR window closing. So yesterday, literally, all we did was catch up on STAR. And so I was kind of put in this weird position where, do I get you started on expressions and equations this week, or do I wait until next week? And so what I was afraid of is that we're going to start the unit this week and that you guys are going to kill it today, and then come Monday morning or Tuesday morning before we can actually get back to math, you guys will have forgotten everything we worked on. And I don't think that's the case. I think you guys will be fine with this. So what I did instead was I made today's stuff fairly easy. But what we're going to do is we're going to front load all the skills that you're going to need next week to be successful as we launch into expressions and equations and learning about things like exponents and the order of operations and equivalent expressions and all those things, okay? So here's what I'm going to go ahead and suggest you all do right now. I'm going to open up my screen here. Oh, that's my homework assignment. You don't want to see that. Let's go ahead, and if you guys go ahead, you can open up your quick check just so that it's open. Okay, you can also open up your Stockman Powers and Exponent Skills practice page, okay, so that it's open. And then what you can do is just follow along with me on my screen as I go through the notes. You'll notice I didn't give you your own copy of the slides. This way we're not wasting time having to hold up and let everybody catch up on typing into their own slides. So everybody should have access to this exact set of slides, and you'll be able to see my icon moving as I'm moving from slide to slide. And I want to remind you guys that this is the first Friday of the third quarter, which means, what do you think I'm going to start inputting this weekend? Say that a little bit louder.
Grades.
Yes. So I'll be going through and looking at your, yes, and people put it in the chat log, thank you. I'll be going through and taking a look at your Camp Keep slides that we finished from last week to take a look at what kind of science grade you'll be starting the quarter off with. And your level of participation today is going to dictate your first set of participation points in math. So you're going to really want to jump in and participate. So let's go ahead and test that. Let's see who's ready to rock and roll. What are we going to need for this lesson? Who wants to go ahead and read off our materials? What are we going to need for this lesson, guys? Juarez, good job. You got your hand up. Go ahead. Rattle them off.
Whiteboard, marker, paper, pencil, Chromebook, slides, Google Form, lesson 1, slide, skill practice.
Good. Excellent. So look, do you need a whiteboard, marker, and paper and pencil, or can you have one or the other?
One with the other.
Yeah, so I don't care if you have a whiteboard and a marker. I don't care if you have paper and pencil. You are going to be taking a picture and uploading some work for me today, though. So whatever it is that you're working on, when I tell you to get going, you're going to want to save it, okay? Or take pictures, take multiple pictures. If you're using a whiteboard, you're going to want to make sure that it's nice and ordered and nice and neat and organized, okay? Let's go over lesson expectations. It's been a while since we've reiterated our expectations because we had Camp Keep all last week and a few interruptions this week. Let's go ahead. Who wants to read off our first lesson expectation? Krishma, go ahead.
Listen and follow directions.
Good. Jesse, let's get the second one. Go ahead. And then Julian, you take number 3. You're good.
Actively listen and to participate in lesson either out loud or through the chat log.
Exactly, right? So I don't mind either form of participation is fine, right? Even sometimes you guys know I say thumbs up in the camera, right? Or I'll say click the go ahead button, right? Any level of participation that I can measure from you guys will be sufficient right now. Julian, hit me with my third one, please.
Practice effective and efficient collaborations, no sidebar conversations.
Right, and we might have sidebar conversations, right? Sometimes we stop and we go down bunny trails, but we got to do them at the right time. Camilla, go ahead and hit me with my next one, please.
Cameras on.
Camera's on, that's right. Not optional, right? It's not a suggestion. And by now we know this. So Brando, Desire, Gabriella, and Samantha, I'll give you guys a few seconds to compose yourselves if you need to. Maybe your camera's off because your hair's all messed up, or maybe you left your makeup on last night. I'm not sure. I'll give you a few minutes to compose yourselves, but when I check back, I want to see that those cameras are on, okay? All right, so let's move into the actual meat of the lesson. Let's get into what it is that's important, our objective, our goals. What is it that I need you guys to be able to do by the end of this lesson in particular? So let's go ahead here and let's have, who have I not heard from this morning? Let's go ahead and have Mr. Isaac Meza. Can you read me my primary objective?
Write and evaluate
Numerical.
numerical expressions involving the whole number exponents.
Very good, exactly. So what we're going to be working on today, what it is that I need you guys to understand or be able to do, it's okay, Desire, don't worry about it, is you guys need to be able to write and evaluate numerical expressions involving whole numbers and exponents, okay? By the way, that verb evaluate, that was part of our unit vocab that we went over on Tuesday. What does it mean to evaluate, Shara? If I want to evaluate something, what's another synonym for evaluate?
I'm not sure which one. I can't think of anything right now.
Okay, that's all right. Valeria's got her hand up. I think she's going to jump in and give you a reminder. Go ahead, Valeria.
Does it mean to solve a problem?
It could mean to solve a problem. Let me put it to you this way. Let me ask you this. If I said that this morning I'm being evaluated by one of my university supervisors, what does that verb mean? If I say that I'm being evaluated, I see Karen typing all fast now. She wants to be the first one to get it in. Go ahead, Karen, your hand's up.
Judge?
Yeah, it kind of means to judge, right? It means to determine something, to judge whether or not something is acceptable or not, right? If we're evaluating it, it means that we're going to try to judge whether or not it's true or accurate. We're going to try and evaluate whether or not it's acceptable, or if statements are true, right? Exactly. So while we're working on that objective, we also need to understand our secondary objective is that we need to understand that when we use exponents, we're simply using them to represent what we would call repeated multiplication, much in the same way that multiplication represents repeated addition. I'm going to switch my camera over to demonstrate what I mean by this, and I'll come back to my slides in just a second. When I say that multiplication, I want you guys following along with me real quick. When I say that multiplication represents repeat addition, give me an example. So I'll give you one first. Let's say I have this 4 plus 4 plus 4. How could I write that using multiplication instead of having to write out and add the 4 to itself 3 times? How could I write that using multiplication?
4 to the third power.
4 to the third power is something different, and that's what we're going to get into. So, Kevin, I want you to hang on to that. Put that in your pocket because we're coming back to it. Yeah, I'm looking in the chat log. You guys are writing 4 times 3, right? 4 times 3, right? Exactly. So 4 times 3 is equivalent to 4 plus 4 plus 4. And we can check this, right? 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 4 more is 12, right? Well, we all know, or at least those of us that have memorized our multiplication facts, 4 times 3 is also 12, right? Well, much in the same way that this sign, multiplication, represents repeated addition, much in that same way, if we were to have written 4 to the third power, as Kevin said, this instead becomes repeat multiplication. So it would be 4 times 4 times 4. And so that's going to be our secondary objective today, is not only being able to write and evaluate numerical expressions with exponents, but also having a good, deep foundational understanding that when we raise something to the third power, we're multiplying it by itself 3 times. Okay, and we're going to get into that really, really quickly. So let's go into our introduction phase then. Key vocab and conceptual foundations, right? The stuff that we're going to need to be successful by the end of this lesson. Let me go ahead and minimize your guys' faces for just a second so I can present this. So when we talk about exponents, there are 2 parts to an exponent. We have what's called the base first. Can anyone read me the definition for what a base is right here? It's right there under academic vocabulary. What are we referring to when we're referring to the base?
Base refers to the number that is multiplied by itself when raised to a certain power.
Exactly, right? So when we're talking about exponents, if I refer to the base, I'm talking literally about the whole number in this case that's being multiplied by itself when we raise it to a certain power, right? So this number here in this case, and I want everyone to write this either on your piece of paper or on your whiteboard. I want you to write 4 with an arrow to it that says base. I want you to label it base. Okay? So if you had to explain the term base in your own words, does anyone want to kind of try to put it into their own terms? So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to put 4, okay, and I'm going to draw an arrow to it that says base. And this way, if we write it down, it carves a neural pathway for us so that we're more likely to remember it next time. Even if you don't come back to your notes at any point in the future, you will have written it down, and therefore your brain will have internalized it much more effectively. Okay, good. Okay, so but now we have a second part that we need to add to this base, and this is called the exponent, or the power, right? The power. Oh, Valeria, from the previous slide, she said it's the number being multiplied when there's an exponent. Very good, exactly. So let's go ahead and have someone, Desire, can you read me the definition for an exponent or a power right here? It is right underneath academic vocabulary. Can you read that for me, please?
Refers to a number that shows how many times a base is multiplied by itself.
Excellent, thank you, Desire. So in this case, our exponent is 2. So I want everyone to write that down. And you'll notice that the 2 is like a little bit smaller than the 4, and it's up above the 4, right? It's up in like the top. It's almost like it's riding on its shoulder like a parrot, right? We can think of the 4 as a pirate, and we can think of the power as its parrot almost, right? It's almost riding on its shoulder. And it's a little bit smaller as well. So this 2 is the actual exponent, or what we would call the power. And we'll get into how to say these things and how to refer to them using our words. Now, the exponent or the power is simply the amount of times the base is being multiplied by itself. So, if we were, and I you know what, don't even pay attention to to this right here. I usually include this to freak my kids out and tell them to solve it, this ridiculous math problem. I'm not going to do that to you guys. So if we were to say this out loud or verbalize this, there are a few different ways that we could do this. And I want you guys to go ahead and write these down as well. We could say 4 to the power of 2. We could say it that way. That's one way of doing it. We could also say 4 raised to the power of 2. We could also say, and this is one you're going to want to memorize, because sometimes what you'll get when you take a STAR test or the SBAC, they'll just assume that your teacher has taught you to memorize these things. This one right here, 4 squared. Anytime you see a number raised to the power of 2, you call it squared. Okay? So if you're taking the SBAC and they say evaluate the following exponential expression, 4 squared, you know that that's just 4 to the power of 2, right? So these are the different ways that we can verbalize them, right? So if you hear me say, all right, everybody, I want you to write me an expression in exponential form that is equivalent to saying 4 to the power of 2, or 4 raised to the power of 2, or 4 squared, right? So these are just some ways that we can refer to this. Now, this right here is what we call exponential form. Exponential form. When we have a base and its exponent.
Mr. Stockman, I have a question.
I have an answer, Jesse.
So you know how 4 to the power of 2 is called 4 squared?
Yes.
What if it's 4 to the power of 3? Is there anything called for that?
Oh, yes, there is. 4 to the power of 3. So if you mean like if I were to have written this,
Yeah.
that would be called 4 cubed. Right? And think of it this way. And I'm glad that you... See, this is why I like taking bunny trails. This is why I say some sidebar conversations are okay. So, Jesse, if I were to draw a square, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This square has 2 dimensions. It's a 2-dimensional shape, right? It has width and it has length, right? It moves from side to side and up and down. This is what we would call a 2-dimensional shape. It has 4 sides, but only 2 dimensions, right? If I were to be a dot on this paper looking at this square head on, it would just look like a long line, right? And if I were to move around it, it would just look like a series of lines. However, if I add a 3rd dimension to it, meaning if I create a 3-dimensional shape, it now has 3 dimensions. It exists in 3 dimensions. We have length, now we have height, and we have width. And that's why we call it cubed, because what shape is this? This is a cube, right? And before it was just a square. When it existed in 2 dimensions, it was just a square. Good question, Jesse. Excellent.
What is 4 though?
You know, once we get into 4, we don't really have like short-term names for them that we need to memorize. I'm sure that mathematicians and people that are super into geometry, I'm sure there is one, but it's not something that any of us that are learning the foundations need to understand or know. We can just say, for instance, so let's practice, Jesse. It's a good question. Jesse, I appreciate you helping me lead the conversation. So Jesse, if I had 4 as my base, and 4 as my exponent, how would I say this? What would be one way I could say this, Jesse?
4 to the 4th, 4 to the power of 4.
Yeah, 4 to the power of 4. Very good. You had another one. You were going to say 4
To the 4th power.
to the 4th power. Right? Okay. You could also have said 4 raised to the power of 4. Right? And if you have a hard time remembering the raised ones, just remember it kind of looks like this exponent is raised or lifted, right? Okay, good. So it sounds like you guys are understanding how to verbalize these. And so if I were to write, let me just give you one more example before we move on so that I know that everybody is on the same page. I want you guys to either type your answers in the chat. Actually, I would love for you to type your answers in the chat. That's the best way. That way I can attach it to your name and see that you understand. Tell me how to say this problem right here. Tell me one way to say this problem. Just one way. There are about 5 different methods that I gave you. A base of 5 with an exponent of 2. How do I say that using my words? Good. Julian's ready to move on. Shayra is ready to move on. Genesis is good to go as well. You're close, Valeria. Remember that the exponent is the power. Good, Karen. Yes, yes, yes. Good. Very nice. Jeremiah, you're close. Exactly, Valeria. Thank you for correcting that. I appreciate it. Camilla, not quite. Good, Desire. Excellent. Good, 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 good. Good, Alexander. Good, Isaac. Isaac, you have it flipped. Remember, the base is what we're starting with. Good, Brando. Rosalie, remember, it's not the same as 5 times 2. That's something different, and we're going to go over that in just a second. Good, Isaac. Thanks for flipping it. So it looks like you guys are all ready to move on. So for the 2 or 3 of you guys that were struggling with this a little bit, this would just be 5 to the power of 2. Or 5 raised to the power of 2. Or 5 to the 2nd power. And then finally, what was that one that I told you might want to memorize because those sneaky test proctors are going to do it to you every time?
5.
5 squared, right? Exactly. Cool. All right, so that means we're ready to move on from this. I'm glad to see that everybody understands this. So now what we need to really dig into, and again, I just put this in here to freak my kids out here. 2 to the 4th power times x to the 1 times y to the 3rd over 8x squared times y squared times x to the negative 1st power times z to the negative 2nd power is equal to 2yz squared. I do this every year, and every year I watch kids have little private brain aneurysms at their desk and it makes my day. It gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling inside that you guys know drove me to get into teaching in the first place. So, just like with ratios, you guys remember ratios, right? All those weeks ago. There are different notations, right? So with a ratio, what were the three different... Julian said, if I saw that, I would just cry. A single tear would come down my face. Well, Julian, I wish I would have known that. I would have used it. I would have tortured you with it. Darn it. See, I was being nice here on this Friday morning. All right, I'll have to find something else. I'd just have given up, says Gabriella. Yeah, that's what I didn't want. Okay, so just like with ratios, and you guys remember with ratios, there are three different notations that we use, right? And a notation is just a way of writing something out. Does anyone remember what the three notations are for ratios? Shayra, go ahead. Just give me all three of them. What are the three different ways we can write ratios using three different notations?
Using colon, the word 2, and fraction the word.
Yeah, we can represent it using fractions, we can represent it using the word 2, or we can represent it using a colon, right? And we know that all three of those different notations mean the exact same thing, right? They symbolize the same idea, which is that we are comparing one quantity to another quantity, right? Well, the same is true with exponents. Exponents, and I'm not going to go through this entire slide, okay? Just like we just did, there are different ways of notating exponents, right? We can say this 5 to the second power, we can say 5 squared, we can say 5 raised to the power of 2. Any of those are acceptable notations. Now, in addition to that, here's what you need to understand. When we say 5 squared, this is what we really mean. And this is where you need to really pay attention, because this is going to be the part that screws some of you up. Every year, I have someone, at least one kid, decide to tune out at this point in the lesson, and they still think that 5 to the power of 2 is the same thing as 5 times 2. And it's not. These are not the same. Okay? And let me explain to you why. 5 times 2 has a value of what? What is the value of this expression, 5 times 2? 10. It's 10, right? We know that. However, when we see 5 squared, or 5 to the power of 2, or 5 raised to the second power, however you want to remember this, it is actually saying 5 multiplied by itself 2 times. So this number 2, when you see exponents, you know that you're just multiplying the base by itself. The exponent just tells you how many times you're doing it. So what is 5 times 5?
5
Is 25, exactly. Let's try a slightly more difficult one. Before we do, so I have a base of 5 and an exponent of 3. Who wants to tell me, how would I say this? What would be an easy way of saying this?
5 times 5.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. 5 times 5 times 5, right? So, 5 times 5 is what? 25. And then what's 25 times 5?
100.
Oh, I heard a few different ones. Go ahead.
125.
125. Exactly. So 5 raised to the power of 3, or 5 cubed, or 5 to the power, or 5 to the third power is actually another way of saying 125. Okay? Let me ask you this. So let me just say, let's just say Mr. Stockman was bad at math when he was your age. And Mr. Stockman says that 5 to the 4th power is the same as 5 times 4. Who can tell me, is Mr. Stockman correct? Is Mr. Stockman incorrect, and why?
Incorrect because...
Hey, wait a second. Who told you to tell your teacher that he was incorrect? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I know, I did. Go ahead.
Because the 4 is how many times you multiply the base, the 5, the amount of times it multiplies itself. So 5 times 5 times 5 times 5.
Ah, and then 5 times 4 is just what?
5 times 4 is 20.
It's just 20, right? So we know that this is good. 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 is going to be a much larger number, right? So we know 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. And then 125, let's multiply that out. 125 times 5. We get 25. We get 10 and 12. And then we get 5 and 6. So it's 625. Whoa. Much larger than 20, isn't it? Okay. So is everybody, let me just see. Let's see who's ready to move on from this. And you can type your answer into the chat when you have it. I want everyone to solve this one. I want you to not only tell me how, I want you to write it in exponential form, but then I want you to evaluate it, meaning solve it. 4 as your base with 3 as your exponent. I want you to go ahead and evaluate that, please. You can put it in the chat log when you're finished. Good. Mr. Alexander, be careful, because all what you just did is, well, hold on, I'll explain what you did. Yes, I like that you guys are putting them in there, how to represent it in expanded form. Expanded form, so this right here is what we call exponential form, right? Base and exponent. Expanded form is when we take it and write it out as a multiplication problem. 4 times 4 times 4, like that. Just like so many of you have been doing. Okay, exactly. Valeria says 4 cubed. All right, let's work it out. 4 times 4 is what?
16.
And 16 times 4 is what?
64.
64. Very good. Mr. Juarez, you almost had it. You stopped at 32, which is half of 64, right? So you got half of it. So just, it's okay. You probably just went a little too quick. Trust me when I say that was the story of my life with math until I had to learn how to teach it. All right, so let's review, because this is really all we needed to know today. What have we learned? Well, we have learned, go ahead and, Julian, can you read me this part about an expression?
An expression is numbers, symbols, and operators such as plus and x grouped together, showing the value of something.
Right, so this is something you should have learned in 5th grade, but unfortunately for you, you guys had about 8 weeks of your education just kind of cut out from underneath you, right? And so I wanted to review, because probably your teachers got started on this, but then all of a sudden, the world exploded and we took a year off. So we need to understand that the word expression, because you're going to hear this a lot. You're going to see problems that say evaluate the expression, right? Or solve the expression. An expression is just what we get anytime we group numbers, like 2 and 4, together with an operation symbol, meaning plus, or we could say 2 minus 4, or we could say 2 divided by 4, or we could say 2 times 4, right? Anytime you see numbers together and there are operation symbols between them, or implied operation symbols, as we'll get into later, that's what we call an expression. So just like 2 times 3 and 4x plus 4, these are expressions. Now, we're getting into, this is another one you need to really, really dig into. These numbers that are separated by operational symbols are what we call terms, okay? And a term is either a single number or it can be a variable, and we're going to get into what all those terms mean as we get into this unit. Today I really wanted to just focus on exponents, but I'm afraid that you're going to see problems that say something like this. How many terms are in the expression? And I'm afraid you guys are going to go, oh my God, I haven't seen that word term before. So everybody pay attention right here, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of demystify this word term for you. So if I have a problem like this, 4 to the power of 3 plus 6. This is what we call an expression, right? This is what we call an expression. Now, what 2 operations do you notice in this expression? There are 2 operations.
I mean, you can't really see it, but multiplication and division.
What do you mean you can't really see it? You're telling me that the multiplication is implied. How so, Jess?
Because once you actually get the 3 and multiply it, not by 4, multiply 4 by itself 3 times, then you can start to see the multiplication.
So you're telling me that the problem actually looks like this. 4 times 4 times 4 plus 6. Excellent. Very good, Jesse. So this is what I want you to pay attention to. 4 to the power of 3 is a term, and 6 is a term. There are 2 terms in this expression. So let's practice another one. You guys tell me how many terms are in this expression. You ready? How many terms are in this expression?
2.
2 terms. Very good. How about this one? Good. Excellent. I was afraid this was going to freak you guys out, and I'm glad to see that it hasn't. All right, so we got about 10 minutes left here. So, what we'll do, let's work on this one. Let's go ahead and let's have a strong reader get us through this problem so that we can get through it very quickly.
The sports
Go ahead.
The sports store orders a box of table tennis balls. The dimensions of the box are 10 inches by 10 inches by 10 inches. Inside the box, there are 6 layers of table tennis balls. Each layer is made up of 6 rows and 6 columns of table tennis balls. How many table tennis balls are in the box?
Good. Now, I want to draw your attention here. We're going to skip that part. To this word volume. Sports stores orders a box of dimensions, not volume. We're skipping the volume one today. Dimensions has to do with, again, like Jesse brought up earlier, when we talked about 2 dimensions versus 3 dimensions. A box would have 3 dimensions, right? Because it has length, it has width or depth, and then it has height, right? It exists in 3-dimensional space. So, what are my important numbers here? If I were to cubes this problem out, what are my important numbers?
10 and 6.
10 and 6, right? But what do you notice?
There's 3 of each.
There's 3 of each. Uh-oh. So, what would we do? What would we do, guys? You know what I'll do, since we're running out of time, we've only got 5 minutes left. Since I've only got 5 minutes left, what I'll do, I'll assign this question for extra credit. Okay? So what you can do to get extra credit for your first week of school is to solve that problem, work it out, and attach it to this following thing I'll show you right now. Hold on. What I want you guys to do right now is to get into your Google form. First of all, we'll do the quick check now because we're running out of time. I just want to make sure that everybody kept up. So everybody open up your exponents quick check. Okay? And you'll notice that it's 5 questions. Okay? The questions are all mostly multiple choice. Hold on one second. We could write 10 to the... Okay, so Valeria, hold on. I'll show you how to include your answer for extra credit in just a second. I thought we were going to have more time. I want everyone to get your quick check done. Okay, it's 5 questions, 4 of which are multiple choice, and 1 of which is actually a typed problem. First and last name is always. And I want you guys to be paying attention to my instructions here. So listen. After you finish the Google form, wait for me to check your results. So I need everyone to get this done before class. Those that got a score of 4 or above, you guys can go ahead and move on to lesson 1 skills practice by yourself, meaning this right here. You don't have to, because you also have Next Gen today. We're going to be working on the lesson 1 skills practice next period. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a breakout room for those of you that feel like you want to work on this without my help to see if you have a good understanding of it, and you guys can do that, okay? If by some chance you get a 3 or below, you need to watch this reteach video. If you click the link, it'll take you to Khan Academy, okay? And then you need to try the exit ticket again. So let me make sure that I have gone ahead and it made it so that you guys Yeah, there we go. Cool. So it's now not limited to one response. So everybody has an opportunity to take this twice. So if you fail it the first time, your exit ticket, you need to go back. You need to watch that reteach video and try it again. Okay, where do we write the extra credit? Exactly. Okay, so let me get to that. So you will have the opportunity to submit your extra credit here. Okay, so what we're going to end up doing today when we work on these 20 questions with exponents, what we're going to do is when you have completed, when you have you're going to do your work on a separate sheet of paper or on your whiteboard, and then you're going to upload the image of it, right, by inserting an image. Once you've done that, down below, you can upload your answer for the extra credit question. Does that make sense, Valeria?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody go ahead and get started on your on your exit ticket. I'm going to go ahead and start GoGuardian to make sure that everybody is on the exit ticket. Okay, and I want this done. We have 5 minutes, so this needs to be done within the next 5 minutes. Let me go ahead and start my GoGuardian, and here we are. Good, Samantha's on task. Shayra, it looks like, is almost done. You know what, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you guys don't see each other's answers. Mr. Stockman's a goofball. Okay, looks like most of you guys. Good, Francisco. Oh, Francisco, I am so sorry. I closed your tab. I meant to close my window where I was looking at your GoGuardian. I did not mean to do that. So Shara, I like that you got your score and that you went ahead and moved right on to the independent practice. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at some of these scores. I've already got 5 responses in. All right. So Krishma, I want you to go back and watch that reteach video. The link is in the Google Slides. I want you to watch that video, and then I want you to try that exit ticket again. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. I need you guys to have this submitted in the next 3 minutes. 2 minutes now, actually. 8:45. Shouldn't take that long, right? Good, good, good. So Logan, Isaac, I want you to go watch the reteach video. Good job, Logan. Okay, coming up on the minute warning, I want everyone to finish up which part they're on. Much better, Krishma. Thank you for going back and doing your diligence. Good job. Like I said, I want you guys to go ahead and start this quarter off on the right foot. I don't want anyone starting off, you know, with 1s, 2s, or 3s in the grade book for an easy, quick check like that. Good, Jesse.
Mr. Stockman,
Yes.
how can we write an exponent on the Google Doc?
On the Google Doc?
Yeah, how am I gonna write it?
So that's why I'm having you do your work on a separate sheet of paper, Shayra. Remember, you're gonna take pictures of it and upload it. Yeah. So Shayra asked a good question, guys. I want you guys do not. So let me just show you. Here's the problem with this right here. If you start trying to type and hit enter and stuff, it's gonna like format your paper all crazy. See? So what I want you to do instead is I've uploaded all of these problems. Okay, and what I want you to do is you're gonna number on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so what you'll do is just like you would in class if you were doing this from a math textbook in a classroom. Okay, you're gonna go name. So Stockman, right? Today's date is the 22nd. Okay, and this is lesson 1, skills practice. And what you're gonna do is 1, 2, 3, just like it is on the paper, right? Or on the Google Doc. And so we have 5 times 5 times 5. How would I write that in exponential form, boys and girls? How would I write 5 times 5 times 5 in exponential form?
5 with a little 3 on top.
Yeah, 5 raised to the power of 3, right? Just like that. Okay? So that's what you're going to do. And we're going to get through all 20 of these problems. So those of you, good, Brando agrees. So those of you, let me see, I'm still waiting on a couple responses. So it looks like Rosalie, Samantha, you guys need to go back and watch that reteach video, okay? Now, those of you that didn't, or that got, 4s or 5s, I want you guys to go ahead and, when it says written as an expression, does it mean to write in expanded form? Exactly, Valeria. Okay, so I want you guys, those of you that got started on this independently, go ahead and stop now. It's time to do Read Plus. We will get back to this and finish all 20 of these when we come back for 5th period. Those of you that are brave and adventurous, I may stick you in a breakout room with a group of your friends so that you can talk each other through the problems while I work with those that didn't do so well on the exit ticket. Okay, so like for instance, I may put Valeria and Genesis and Shayra and Karen in a breakout room together so that they can work on questions 1 through 10 together. And then we may pull it back into the whole group, okay? Does that sound like fun? You guys want to work in small groups? Those of you that did okay? Give you a chance to collaborate with one another? You don't have to. I'm just saying those that want to. Those that don't, you can stick with me, okay? So it looks like I'm still missing a couple submissions. So everybody submit what you got. So let's see, who's still working? Is my next gen, or my, there we go. Okay, good. All right, so it looks like, do we have to wait for you to do the docs? So yeah, Karen, wait until 5th period. Right now I want you guys, after those of you that are watching the reteach video and that are trying the exit ticket for a second time, finish up with that task. Everybody else, I want you on Read Plus right now, okay? Transition over to Read Plus. We will do these 20 problems together. Okay? I'm going to update the time as well. I'm going to add another 30 minutes. And actually, I'll add another hour. That way I can go back and see who actually did their Read Plus and who did not on my Go Guardian. Okay, so remember, first Friday of the 3rd quarter. You don't want to miss out on any easy points. You're going to want to log in and do your Read Plus. It looks like Julian is on the right track. Looks like Genesis is doing what she ought to be doing. Looks like Gabriella and Alexander and Desire and Isaac is starting to get there. It looks like Jesse and Shayra are there, Valeria and Krishma and Julian. Good. Okay. I will see you guys back here in about an hour and 15 minutes. When we come back, be prepared. We're going to start working on those 20 questions that we did, okay? And if we have time, if we knock all 20 of those questions out, maybe we'll do our next gen practice as well, just to get it out of the way, okay? Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'll see you guys in about an hour and some change, okay? Bye-bye. Have a good one.